My girlfriend has all these rules that make my life unbearable, and I think I'm going crazy following all of them. Now, I keep catching myself dreaming of possibly ruling her out of my life. My girlfriend, 30F, and I, 30M, have been together for 3 years. She is the best thing that ever happened to me, and I plan on marrying her. Lately, however, her rules, I call them rules, but they are more like obsessions, are driving me crazy. I know she is meticulous, I know she is particular, and I know she's a perfectionist, but I'm starting to think she has some kind of underlying OCD or something. Our house always has to be pristine, with everything in its right place. But when I get off work, I just want to relax and not care about the fact that I hung up my jacket on the wrong hook. If I try to help her with laundry, she gets frustrated because I hang up the wrong things at the wrong places. Apparently, shirts go in a certain place on the laundry line, and it's a disaster if they're too close to the socks. I'm not allowed to be barefoot outside, otherwise, I have to wash my feet before I can get back into the house. I'm allowed to put my feet on the couch if I have socks or slippers, but those same socks and slippers are not allowed on the bed. Sometimes I just want to get into bed without having to put on clean socks. If a pillow touches the floor too long, it has to be washed, but then the designated pillowcase for that particular set of sheets doesn't match, so the whole bed has to be stripped and changed. All our sheets and pillowcases are white and look exactly the same. She reminds me to pack my lunch for work every morning, which is nice and all, but she does it 4 times in a row. She tells me every morning and every night to wash and moisturize my face multiple times, and she makes me promise that I will remember to do it only because I passed out on the couch and forgot one time. I've told her that it bothers me when she does this. She told me that she can't help it because it just builds and builds in her mind over and over if she doesn't say anything. I'm not allowed to say goodbye to her in the mornings, only see you later because saying goodbye could curse one of us. I'm also not allowed to say drive safe. She is currently studying for her board exams, and she's already told me that I'm not allowed to say good luck because I will jinx her. She is extremely intelligent and graduated at the top of her class last year. I told her mom about how well she did and how proud I was of her. Later that night, she was bawling her eyes out. When I asked her what was wrong, she said that she knew I didn't mean anything by it, but if people are aware of how well she did, it means that she will do poorly in her board exams. Her mother told all her family, who then called to congratulate her, and I felt like the worst person in the world. I feel like things are just getting worse. For example, one of the clothes that we used to clean the house is missing. We had a huge argument about it because she was tearing down the whole house trying to find it. I helped her look for it but gave up after 5 minutes because it was after work and I was tired. She got angry at me and accused me of not caring about our things. I told her that I do care about our things, but it's just a cloth, and we can buy another one. It's just not worth the effort for me. She was freaking out, saying that it was difficult to find a cloth in that particular color, otherwise, they wouldn't match with the others. We have a whole set of clothes just for cleaning. I then said that it doesn't matter what color the clothes are, just that we have them, which made her really upset. It's been almost a month, and we haven't replaced the cloth yet because we can't find one in the very specific color she wants. The worst thing is that I really think it affects her health. We both love to cook and often do it together. We usually spend time together drawing up a meal plan for the week, but her rules have started to make the whole process unbearable. Meal planning takes hours. Every dish that we make has to have enough vegetables. Fine, that's great, but the vegetables have to be the right vegetables for the dish. Some things can't be eaten together because they don't fit together, according to her. If a meal doesn't have enough of the right vegetables, she gets incredibly anxious to the point that she's nauseous and then just won't eat. She also has this thing where food can't be wasted, and then I tell her it's fine, we can just have it for leftovers for lunch, but obviously lunch is also planned out, so she gets really stressed out and eats a small plate of vegetables while I make myself food. I know she's struggled with depression in the past and that she's on antidepressants, but this just feels like it's something more. No matter what I do to reassure her, I just feel like I'm making things worse. I've told her that she needs to see a therapist, but she told me she feels ashamed of these things and doesn't want to waste money on a therapist. I just don't know what to do anymore. Update 1. We had a talk last night, and she agreed to go to therapy. She said she is very reluctant to go to therapy because she fears that talking about this stuff will lead to bad things happening. She told me that many of these rules are distressing to her too, but she didn't really realize they had that much of an effect on her because she was still functioning normally. She also apologized for the fact that I feel like I can't relax and said it made her very sad and that she will do what she can to make sure I am comfortable and happy. We are also currently working on some strategies that will help ease some of the burden these rules have on me. We will be getting a coat hanger so that I don't instinctively hang my coat on the first hook I see but rather as I come in the door, which works out better for both of us. I also made dinner on my own last night since she had a study session until very late, and she was very grateful and happy. The meal didn't fit together perfectly, according to her, and there weren't enough vegetables, but I said that the meal fit together perfectly in my mind and that we could double up on vegetables at the next meal. She told me that by saying that, it actually made her feel a lot less stressed about it.
I purchased my mom's tickets to Hamilton, so my boyfriend must be crazy to believe that I'm giving them away for his sister. I'm gonna cut my losses quick and straight up tell him bye. My mom is genuinely one of the funniest, kindest, and sweetest people I've ever met, and I'm genuinely lucky to have been her daughter. She had me fairly young, raised me by herself. And while we were pretty poor growing up, she did her damnedest to make sure that I got a good education and had everything I needed as a kid. One of the things we share is a love of theater. She would save up and take me to all the musicals that stopped on tour in our town, and while we were always in the cheap seats, it was always something we both greatly looked forward to. These memories of going to the theater with my mom are very precious to me and are one of the main reasons why I work in the entertainment industry today, albeit on the corporate side because I have a horrendous singing voice. Fast forward to today. Like most theater nerds, my mom and I are basically obsessed with Hamilton. And for those of you who aren't really familiar with it, this show is basically impossible to get tickets for at this point, unless you want to see it in January of next year. I'm lucky enough to be in a financial position with my job that I could afford tickets for a show in July for me and my mom. These are amazing seats in the fifth row center. And through some type of divine intervention, I managed to snag tickets for the night of Lin-Manuel Miranda's final performance, who is the creator and lead of Hamilton. I surprised my mom with these tickets back in December for Christmas. I'm making a whole week of it. I put us up in a really nice hotel. I made reservations at a bunch of restaurants that we both want to try. And we're going to do a bunch of touristy stuff in general, plus try to see if we can fit in at least one other show before we leave. We are both incredibly excited for this. My mom even has a little Hamilton countdown that she's doing on a mini chalkboard she uses as a planner. She sends me pictures every day when she changes them. It's cute. In January, I began dating this guy that I'll refer to as Joshua. We were casual or not exclusive for a while but became serious within the last 2 months. He also works on the corporate side of entertainment, but at a different agency than I do. He also has a higher position than me and makes a lot more money than I do. We met at an industry event, and we hit it off instantly. I thought I could get really serious about this guy. And up to this point, there have been no red flags that I've seen, although, to be honest, right now I'm sifting through all of my memories to see if there's something I missed. He also comes from a much wealthier family than I do. Josh has a younger sister, whom I'll call Jennifer, who's kind of going through a big troubled teen phase. She cuts class, smokes, and is really disrespectful to her parents. I've only met her once, but as far as I know, she's not doing anything too bad. She's just kind of a sad kid and could really benefit from some therapy. I floated this by Josh, but he said his parents are kind of disdainful of therapy in general. Josh says they can't reach out to her no matter what they do, and they've tried everything except trying to get her to a counselor. On Sunday night, I was at my place with Joshua. We were drinking wine and cuddling while watching the Tony's Theater Awards show. My mom was texting me during the Hamilton performance and geeking out about how excited she was. I laughed and showed my mom's text to Josh because I thought they were so adorable, and he didn't say anything, but he was acting kind of strange after. He asked me what date the show we were going to was. I told him, and then he went into the other room to take a phone call. I thought nothing of it because we both have to take random phone calls like that for our jobs all the time, and he's going through a kind of tough time at his. He was in an unusually good mood afterwards and said he had to go home early because he had to sign some forms at the office early tomorrow before we met up to get brunch with his parents later that day. Again, nothing too unusual and pretty common with the both of us. He picks me up at work for the brunch with his parents, and again, he's in an unusually good mood. I ask what's up, and he says vaguely that things are going well at the office and this deal he's trying to make is finally going through. I don't really press for information because we both try to avoid work topics, and this is only my second time meeting his parents, so I'm still a bit nervous about brunch. We get to the brunch place, and the first thing his mom does when she sees me is give me a huge, warm hug and profoundly thank me for my kindness. Her dad also gives me a huge handshake and thanks me for helping out with Jen. I'm kind of confused because I have no clue what they're talking about. I ask what she means, and she says for giving her the Hamilton tickets. I turn around to Josh, and he just has this big grin on his face. Apparently, that time my boyfriend was away talking on the phone for business, he was actually on the phone with Jen, promising that I would give her my Hamilton tickets. I was so thrown off by this that I said that I had no clue about this. Josh looks pissed, and his parents are equally thrown off. But instead of getting mad at Josh, his mom just says, "Well, you can still give them to her, right?" And they all look at me like I'm supposed to just agree with this. And I try to explain that the trip is actually for me and my mom and how important this is to my mom. All three of them start going on about how Jen is super excited about this and that this is the first time that she's not been mad or expressed happiness to them in a while. And that's how the next half hour goes, basically, until the parents leave, mad, and the dad calls me a selfish cow. I'm so flabbergasted that I just sort of put up with it, but I could barely get in a word. Josh and I go outside the brunch place, and he starts screaming at me about my selfishness, how Jen is going through a much harder time than they thought, and that I'm being childish because it's just a musical. I hate having arguments in public, so I wasn't really engaging. He eventually called me the C word and then left in his car, which is awkward as hell because it was valet parking, so he was just kind of stewing by the valet stand while I was waiting for my Uber. Later that night, I texted him saying while I wasn't giving up my tickets, there are still some available on that date. However, they cost about $2,500 due to ticket scalpers jacking up the price. Believe me, this is not a problem for either the parents or my boyfriend. He literally bought a $3,000 watch for funsies last week. The only response I got was that that was an exorbitant fee. He refuses to pay, and he didn't understand why I couldn't just give the tickets to Jen. I also got texts from both his parents pleading with me to give the tickets. And also, they forwarded an email to me that Jen sent to Josh and her parents for thanking them for the surprise. Apparently, she's also obsessed with Hamilton and this is making her year. Also, we live in LA. Do they also expect me to give up my plane ticket and hotel? What the hell is their game plan here? Look, I completely understand wanting to help out with Jen, and I feel really bad that apparently her family is filled with weirdos, but this has been also baffling, and the entitled behavior they displayed is a massive turnoff. I'm not giving up these tickets, but I also kind of want to cut my losses here. The attitude Josh displayed towards me outside of the brunch place was very unpleasant, to say the least, and he knows how disrespectful I find being called a C, so I'm of half a mind to just break up with him. He knew I had these tickets for a while, and I don't get why he decided to do this now. But should I contact Jen and explain it all? I just saw that she made a really excited post on Facebook about it. I'm not friends with her, but I am friends with my boyfriend, and he liked her post. I would straight up buy the ticket for her, but frankly, I can't afford those prices because I'm saving up for the NYC trip for my mom. How do I move forward? Update 1. I'm typing up an email dumping him right now. Normally, I think it's better to meet up for things like this, but his behavior both during and outside brunch was scary, and I would prefer not to be alone with him right now. Maybe that's paranoid, but better safe than sorry. I think this is one of those situations where everything was so crazy and they were acting like this was totally normal behavior that I thought I was the insane one. My heart skipped a beat when my ex told me that he never stopped loving me. He made a mistake 10 years ago, and I no longer hold it against him. Now we're here giving a go at it again. My ex, whom we'll call Mike, and I were together since we were 14 and got married at 22. We have 2 kids together. My ex's work takes him all over the country for a week every quarter. On one of those trips, he hooked up with one of his coworkers. I never thought he could do something like that because our relationship was really solid. He confessed immediately after he got home. I actually would have never found out if he hadn't. He begged me for forgiveness, said that he still loved me and that it was a lapse in judgment, but said he would understand if I wanted a divorce, which is what eventually happened. It was very amicable, and he actually gave me more than I expected: house, child support, and alimony. It was a slow process, but over the years, we became friends again and have a good co-parenting dynamic. Mike's a great father, and the kids still love him. I got married 3 years later, and he was actually very supportive. I divorced my second husband 2 years ago because he changed his mind about kids. I wanted one last baby. Since the lockdown, Mike has been over frequently. At this point, our relationship is so good that we do not need to enforce any of the set visits and such. Well, things have been getting hot between us for the last few months, and we started sleeping together. I'm a woman with needs too. And to be very honest with you guys, he's still the best guy I've been with after all these years. It's like our bodies were made for each other. He always joked that we were like Prime Pippin and Jordan in bed, and when he said that again, it felt like we were back 10 years ago when we were still together. It was supposed to be just physical, but here we are. Just a few hours ago, he brought up the idea of us getting back together. He gave me the most genuine speech about how stupid he was the night he cheated and how he never stopped loving me in the last 10 years. I was speechless and couldn't say anything, so he just gave me his usual toothy smile and said, "It's okay, I'll wait before driving home." Now I'm lying here in bed, typing this out. I'd be lying to you guys if I said I didn't love him. I'd be lying if I said the last few months weren't the happiest I've been in years. And I'd be lying if I said I never forgave him for cheating. I told him years ago that I already did. If I had to decide right now, I'd jump out of bed, drive to his house, and bring him home. It's taking all my willpower not to do so. I love him. However, I also want to think with my brain here. There are pros to taking him back. He's a great dad, and the kids would have him around more. He's a great provider. He says he still wants kids. And I still love him. Any advice on how I should proceed? Update 1. The morning after I posted, I texted Mike, saying that I needed time and space to think about everything. He then replied, "I've waited 10 years, I can wait a bit longer." My heart melted. When the kids woke up, our son was looking for his dad. He's at the age now where he pretty much idolizes his dad. I get why, though. Mike is an amazing dad. Our daughter gave me the stink eye all morning. After lunch, when our son was in his room playing video games, my daughter confronted me about Mike. She basically said that she knew there was something going on and that she didn't want our fighting to affect their lives. She thought we were fighting. Now, the divorce has affected her, but not as badly as expected. We made sure to get her counseling immediately after, and we made sure her life was as normal as possible. I'm not going to delude myself and think she wasn't hurt by it, but I'm pretty confident in saying we dealt with it pretty well, or as well as we could. I then had the conversation about how we weren't fighting but quite the opposite. We were thinking about getting back together. She thought about it for a while and said she was happy for us and hoped it was forever this time. The next day, I dropped my kids off at my parents' house so I could talk to Mike at his place. We had a long talk about how we felt about each other and what we planned to do about it going forward, and as many of you suggested, what he planned to do next time we hit a rough patch, especially since we plan on having a third kid. He told me that the night he cheated still haunted him 10 years later. He told me how it wasn't worth it one bit and how it was the biggest mistake of his life. He said that if ever we hit a rough patch again, we would talk about it like adults. He even suggested we do couples counseling every now and then, even when times are good. I like this idea. There are some details about our conversation that I want to keep private, but, long story short, we got back together. We are going to take it slow, and in every step we take, we both agree that our children will take priority over everything. He's not going to move in yet, but he would spend a few nights a week at home with us. Later that night, we sat the kids down and broke the news. The daughter didn't say much because she already knew, but our son was over the moon. Since we divorced when he was a baby, the concept of both his parents being together was quite new to him. They obviously asked questions, and we answered them. We're also planning on doing family counseling to make the transition easier for everyone. Overall, I'm really happy right now. Mike made a mistake 10 years ago, but I don't hold it against him and have completely forgiven him for it. I know he loves me now and won't cheat on me anymore. I'm back together now with the love of my life and the father of my kids, and I couldn't be happier. As I type this out, Mike is in the next room playing video games with our son. I'm not entirely sure what the future will look like, but I'm happy he's back.